You know, when you picture the elite military forces of this massive galaxy-spanning empire, there is a very specific image that, like, immediately comes to
Right,
mind.
you think of heroes.
Exactly. You picture these heavily armored defenders of humanity standing resolute on the walls of some besieged world, holding back the tide of these monstrous alien threats.
The ultimate shield, basically.
Yeah, you think of Space Marines as the ultimate shield. But what happens when you flip that completely upside down?
Oh, it gets dark.
It gets so dark. Like, what happens when the monsters you have to fear aren't storming the gates from the outside, but are actually, the ones giving the orders from inside the palace?
Right, the threat is coming from inside the house.
Exactly. And what if those elite forces, those transhuman super soldiers, are built, trained, and unleashed specifically to hunt down and execute their own brothers?
It completely shatters that illusion of the noble warrior. It forces you to look at the machinery of empire not as this force for protection, but as an engine of absolute unyielding control.
It really is a profoundly unsettling shift in perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at the Minotaurs.
The executioners.
Yeah, the executioners of the High Lords. And our mission today is to really unpack the psychology, the dirty politics, and just the grim reality of this force.
Because we weren't just looking at the surface level lore here.
No, not at all. We want to understand why a massive empire feels the need to create a force dedicated entirely to state-sanctioned fratricide, and what that tells us about the sheer paranoia that comes with absolute power.
The central contradiction we are exploring today is, well, it's this military force theoretically designed to protect humanity, right?
Right.
Yet practically, they embody the empire's most self-destructive tendencies.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Exploring them is less about studying conventional military tactics. I mean, it's more about performing an autopsy on a deeply diseased political system.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you have ever worked in a massive bureaucracy, or if you are just fascinated by the dark side of institutional power, this is a masterclass in toxic power
It
structures.
really is the ultimate example.
Yeah, this is what happens when the elite prioritize their own survival over the actual mission of the organization.
Yeah, true.
To understand how you get a force of super soldiers that are so isolated and like so deadly to their own kind, we have to start with the total lack of a beginning.
The erased history.
Exactly, because if you strip a soldier of their past, you leave a psychological vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum, but dictators love them.
Oh, they thrive on them.
They really do, because into that empty space, the High Lords of Terra just inserted themselves.
You absolutely cannot understand their present without understanding the deliberate erasure of their past. Their origins are an intentional enigma tied to the cursed
The
founding.
cursed founding, right?
Yeah.
Which is already this massive mystery.
Yeah, and whatever actually happened during that founding, the mystery was completely sealed by the absolute highest authorities in the Imperium.
Just locked away.
Completely. The current chapter, bearing the name Minotaurs, appears to be an entirely different force from the one recorded in ancient histories.
Wait, okay, the mechanics of that are just staggering if you really think about it, because the
Amazing.
Imperium is notoriously rigid.
Bureaucratically, it's a nightmare.
Exactly. A Space Marine founding isn't just like a handful of guys signing a charter in a back room.
No, it's a massive logistical undertaking.
You are talking about the Adeptus Mechanicus extracting gene seed
Right.
and the Administratum allocating entire star systems just for resources.
Fleets of ships being constructed.
Yes. Fleets of ships, weapons, and centuries of bureaucratic red tape. To erase all of that from the historical record isn't just someone misplacing a file in a cabinet.
No, that requires active systemic violence against the bureaucracy itself.
Right. They would have had to silence Magos biologists. They'd have to scrub these impenetrable administratum vaults.
And likely eliminate the archivists who held the original data.
Yeah.
You don't just erase a founding cleanly.
Wow. Yeah, you'd have to kill the people who knew.
Exactly. The scale of the cover-up is precisely what indicates the involvement of the High Lords.
Because no one else could pull it off.
Right. No one else has the authority or the reach to orchestrate a redaction on a galactic scale like that. The concept of a sealed history, it's a really potent tool in authoritarian regimes.
How so?
Well, when you erase a history, it is a targeted act of psychological warfare against the very soldiers you are creating. You are permanently severing their connection to the wider culture of their peers.
Which makes me wonder about the intent behind all of this. Like, is the cursed of founding a cover-up for a massive catastrophic failure in gene seed mutation?
That's one theory.
Right, like something the Imperium just desperately wanted to sweep under the rug.
Yeah.
Or was it a deliberate, calculated experiment from the start?
To do what?
To create sociopathic soldiers with zero ties to the past, like a Black Ops witness protection program, but for an entire army.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And honestly, the ambiguity serves the regime either way.
Really? You don't think it matters?
I mean, whether it's a mistake they capitalized on or a deliberate design from day one, the outcome is exactly the same. Identity is built on memory and legacy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When a space marine knows their lineage, they have a moral compass, right? It's calibrated by the heroes who came before them.
Like the Ultramarines or the Blood Angels, they have all that history.
Exactly. If their commanders give an unethical order, they have ancient traditions to fall back on for defiance. They could say, our Primarch wouldn't do this.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that. History is a form of rebellion.
It absolutely is. But if your history is fragmented and actively rewritten by your commanders, you are unmoored. Your only identity becomes the one your masters hand to you in the present moment.
So they basically become blank slates.
Yes. And what a paranoid dictator writes on a blank slate is unquestioning obedience.
Oh, man, that is bleak.
They engineered a weapon that has no loyalty to anyone but the hand that feeds it.
It is terrifying because you can see how effective it is. By erasing their past, you guarantee their future compliance.
Exactly.
And that leads directly to how they're actually utilized. The Minotaurs are the personal military arm of the High Lords of Terra, described in the sources as a blunt instrument.
A very specific choice of words.
Yeah, used against the Imperium's most dangerous internal enemies. But I really struggle with that term, you know.
Blunt instrument.
Yeah, blunt instrument implies a lack of sophistication. It implies they're just brawlers.
Well, in the realm of military strategy, you often hear elite forces described as scalpels.
Right, like a surgical strike team.
Exactly. They go in, perform a surgical strike, remove the problem with minimal collateral damage, and just leave quietly.
A clean operation.
Right. The High Lords deliberately choose not to use a scalpel. When they deploy the Minotaurs against internal enemies, like a rogue planetary governor or a rebellious space marine chapter, they are not trying to quietly assassinate leadership.
No, they want people to see it.
Exactly. They're trying to send a deafening, terrifying message to the rest of the galaxy.
So the destruction is the point. The mess is the point.
Oh, absolutely.
The collateral damage is basically part of the psychological payload. It's not just about stopping a rebellion in one place.
No, it's about making the punishment so visibly horrific that the next 3 star systems over decide to pay their tithes on time.
It's the ultimate militarized internal affairs division. Like the cops that police the cops, universally despised but heavily protected by the mayor's office.
That's a perfect analogy. It is the politics of fear. But what this reveals about the High Lords themselves is really critical here.
What do you mean?
The sheer paranoia required to maintain a force like this is staggering. The Imperium is vast, right?
Massive.
And internal threats are just statistically inevitable. But if the governing body needs a dedicated, hyper-lethal army just to fight its own elite defenders, it means they fundamentally do not trust their own system.
They don't trust the normal Space Marines at all.
Right. They are sitting on a throne of bayonets, constantly looking over their shoulders, completely unable to trust the conventional military to police itself.
Wow. But I have to push back on the combat execution of this blunt instrument idea.
Okay, go ahead.
If they are just dropping the hammer, relying on overwhelming force, collateral damage, and shock and awe, how do they actually defeat other Space Marines?
That is the big question.
Because we aren't talking about routing unorganized cultists or like baseline human traitors. They are hunting transhuman tacticians who have hundreds of years of combat experience.
Sometimes thousands of years.
Right. You don't beat a highly trained Astartes just by swinging a hammer wildly. How does a blunt instrument maintain the razor-thin tactical discipline required to actually win a fratricidal war?
Okay, so the bluntness refers exclusively to their political application.
Okay, that makes sense.
The High Lords use them bluntly, without warning, without negotiation, and with overwhelming force. But on the battlefield, the Minotaurs are ruthlessly sharp.
So they aren't just mindless berserkers.
Far from it. To act as the enforcers against other Astartes, you have to possess a deep, almost clinical understanding of transhuman physiology and tactics.
You have to know exactly how to break them.
Exactly. They are attack dogs, yes, but they possess the intellect of apex predators. They utilize specialized munitions, highly coordinated boarding actions, and localized superiority to systematically dismantle forces that are traditionally considered unbreakable.
That distinction makes perfect sense. The overall strategy is a sledgehammer, but the minute-to-minute tactics are a scalpel cutting right through power armor.
That's a great way to put it.
And to pull that off, to be the apex predator of apex predators, you need serious logistical backing.
Oh, their logistics are insane.
Which brings us to their base of operations and their armory, because they don't have a homeworld, do they?
No, they don't.
They are a fleet-based chapter operating out of this ancient heavy assault carrier, the Daedalus Crata.
And the logistics of their operations speak volumes about their intended role. Traditional Space Marine chapters often have a homeworld.
Right, like Macragge or Fenris.
Exactly. That planet provides recruits, resources, and a cultural anchor. But a homeworld is also a massive vulnerability.
Because you have to defend it.
Right. It is a fixed point on a map that can be besieged, blockaded, or held hostage. It gives a chapter something to care about other than war.
And it gives the High Lords leverage. If a chapter misbehaves, Terra can threaten their home.
Precisely.
But by making the Minotaurs fleet-based, Terra completely removes that vulnerability.
Furthermore, a fleet-based chapter operating out of a heavy assault carrier like the Daedalus Crata is an omnipresent, looming threat.
Because they could be anywhere.
Exactly. An assault carrier is essentially a mobile fortress and shipyard combined. It allows them to maintain their war gear, process recruits, and to trudge power without ever dropping anchor.
That is so intimidating.
For any rebel governor or independent-minded Space Marine commander, the knowledge that the Minotaurs could translate out of the warp directly above their atmosphere at any given moment, it's a profound psychological deterrent.
Because they have no borders, which means the entire Imperium is their hunting ground.
Anywhere, anytime.
And when they do translate out of the warp, they are carrying the best gear imaginable. I mean, they are exceptionally well equipped with advanced and rare war gear, which deliberately makes older, more storied chapters furious.
It drives them crazy.
The High Lords are giving these memory-wiped enforcers the absolute best equipment in the galaxy. It feels like a calculated insult.
It absolutely is.
It's like the boss's nepotism hire getting the corner office and a limitless expense account, while the veteran employees who actually built the company are fighting over broken office chairs. Why purposefully stoke that resentment?
Well, resource allocation is one of those fundamental ways a government exercises power. It is the economics of envy.
Economics of envy, I like that.
By giving the Minotaurs the best war gear suits of Tartaros Terminator armor, rare plasma weaponry, advanced void shielding, the High Lords are flexing their political muscle.
It's a power trip.
Exactly. They are signaling to every other chapter, we control the supply lines, we control the technology, and we will give it to the ones who obey us without question.
But that guarantees the Minotaurs will be despised by everyone else.
For the High Lords, that hostility is a feature, not a bug.
Wow. Really?
Think about it. If the Minotaurs have no friends among the other Space Marines, they can never form alliances against Terra.
Oh, that is so manipulative.
Their complete isolation guarantees their absolute loyalty to the High Lords. The resentment of the wider Imperium is the cage that keeps the attack dogs loyal to their masters.
That is a masterclass in toxic management. Like, I will make everyone hate you, so I am the only one you can rely on.
Exactly. It's an abusive dynamic.
But wait, the math isn't adding up for me regarding their armory. The High Lords are secretive, sure, but this war gear is ancient and incredibly rare. You can't just manufacture a relic plasma cannon quietly, even on Terra.
No, you really can't. The Mechanicus would notice.
Right. So the phrase spoils of war is used in the sources to describe how they maintain their arsenal. Are they looting the very Space Marines they execute?
Yes.
Because if you hunt down ancient chapters, those chapters have ancient priceless gear.
The reality of their logistics is this dark amalgamation of High Lord patronage and battlefield scavenging. Taking the spoils of war from fallen brothers is the ultimate desecration in their warrior culture.
It's a massive taboo, isn't it?
Huge. When a Space Marine falls, their armor and their weapons are considered sacred relics. The machine spirits of those weapons are venerated.
They aren't just tools, they have spiritual significance.
Exactly. They are meant to be returned to their chapter, repaired by the Tech Marines, and passed down to the next generation of heroes.
So for the Minotaurs to just rip a chest plate off a dead Marine, scrub his heraldry, and weld it onto their own armor, that's not just an insult. That's fundamentally tech heresy to the wider culture, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. subjugating the machine spirit of a stolen weapon, forcing a piece of armor to serve the executioners of its former master. It is a profound violation of the deepest cultural taboos.
That is chilling.
It reinforces their role not just as killers, but as reapers. They consume the legacy of those they destroy.
Wow, they literally consume their legacy.
It is a logistical necessity for a fleet-based chapter constantly engaging peer-level threats, sure. But it also serves to sever any remaining empathetic ties they might have had to their fellow Astartes.
That is fundamentally broken. It strips away any pretense of nobility.
Completely.
And it brings us directly into how they fight, what the sources refer to as the Art of Fratricide.
The Art of Fratricide, yeah.
They are experts in the systematic destruction of other Space Marine forces. But the detail that truly stands out to me is that they view this fratricide as the ultimate test of their skills.
A point of pride for them.
Exactly. They are defined by a brutal, pragmatic philosophy and what they call a brutal brotherhood.
The psychological conditioning required to reach that point is just staggering. To view the killing of your peers, beings who share your transhuman physiology, your weapons, your foundational purpose, as a test of skill. That requires a complete rewiring of a soldier's morality.
It's sociopathic.
It is. Normally, if a military unit is forced to fire on their own due to a rebellion, it is viewed as a grim, tragic necessity. A horrible duty.
Right, no one wants to do it.
But the Minotaurs have gamified the slaughter of their own kind.
It turns a tragedy into a sport.
Exactly.
Like most Space Marines spend their lives figuring out how to penetrate the chitinous armor of a tyrannid. Right. Or how to counter the warp sorcery of a demon.
Fighting actual external threats.
Yeah. But the Minotaurs spend their time in the training cages figuring out exactly where the weak points are in a suit of Mark 7th power armor. They train specifically to bypass transhuman reflexes.
That's all they do.
It's like being a professional apex predator whose only diet is other apex predators. They aren't interested in hunting deer. They only want to hunt other lions.
That apex predator mentality fundamentally alters their internal culture. A brutal brotherhood is a fascinating paradox when you really look at it.
How so?
Well, how do you forge a lasting bond when your entire existence is predicated on the pragmatic slaughter of beings who look exactly like you?
Oh, that's a good point. You're constantly killing people who could be your brothers.
Right. The answer lies in their absolute isolation. They are hated by everyone else in the galaxy. The only beings who do not view them with disgust are the other Minotaurs standing right next to them.
So it's an us versus the universe mentality?
Exactly. Their brotherhood is a closed loop, fueled entirely by the animosity of the outside world.
It has to be incredibly claustrophobic for them. They have no shared honors with anyone else.
Not at all.
They don't have joint campaigns where they share a drink and a story with another chapter afterward. They just translate into the system, butcher everyone, take their relics, and go back to the cold void of the Daedalus Crata.
And the psychological warfare element of this doctrine really cannot be overstated.
They rely on fear.
They do. The Minotaurs don't just defeat their targets, they dissect them. When an ordinary chapter faces a rebellion or an alien threat, they understand the tactical parameters.
They know what they're up against.
Right. But when they see the bronze hulls of the Minotaur's fleet arrive, they know they are facing a force that has spent its entire memory-wiped existence figuring out specifically how to exploit Astartes' psychology and physiology.
They know you better than you know yourself.
Exactly. The dread they inspire before a single bolt round is fired is a weapon just as potent as their heavy assault carriers.
You know, it makes you wonder about the toll that takes on a person, even a genetically engineered super soldier, to exist solely as a weapon of internal terror.
It has to be corrosive.
Right. And that really zooms us out from the tactical level down in the mud, shooting bolters, to the macro level of the Imperium itself.
What does the existence of the Minotaurs ultimately mean for the galaxy?
The sources refer to this as the ultimate horror.
The ultimate horror. Let's dig into that.
The horror is what the Minotaurs represent about the current state of humanity. They are the embodiment of the Imperium's self-destructive, cynical nature.
Because they aren't protecting anyone. Exactly. They do not exist to protect humanity from the myriad horrors of the cosmos. They exist solely to enforce the will of a corrupt and paranoid elite. They are the axe that the Imperium uses to cut out its own infected flesh.
That metaphor, the infected flesh, is incredibly revealing.
Yeah.
Because it begs the question, who gets to define the infection?
That is the crucial question.
Right. To a paranoid dictator, any independent thought, any minor deviation from absolute subservience looks like a lethal infection.
Even if it's actually healthy for the Empire.
Exactly. Like, is the infection an actual violent treason? Or is it a Space Marine chapter that just decided to prioritize saving a civilian population instead of following a suicidal, strategically useless order from Terra?
In the eyes of the High Lords, the distinction is completely irrelevant.
Disobedience is the infection.
Yes. If we expand on the biological metaphor, think about how a severe autoimmune disease works in the human body. The immune system, which is designed to protect the organism from external threats, becomes fundamentally confused. The T cells begin to interpret chemical signals incorrectly, identifying the body's own healthy tissue as a foreign invader.
So the High Lord's edicts, their orders, are those corrupted chemical signals.
Precisely. The High Lords transmit a corrupted signal, and the Minotaurs, acting as the lethal T cells, respond by annihilating healthy, functional elements of the Imperium's defense network.
Wow, so the Imperium is literally killing itself.
Yes, the Imperium is suffering from a massive systemic autoimmune disorder. The resources, the priceless genetic material, the advanced war gear, the ships, and the tactical brilliance poured into creating and maintaining the Minotaurs.
It could all be used elsewhere.
Exactly. All of it can be used to hold the line against actual existential threats, like the Tyranids or Chaos. Instead, it is turned inward. It is a staggering waste of potential, driven entirely by the self-preservation instincts of a ruling class.
It perfectly mirrors so many real-world institutional failures. I mean, if you think about it, have you ever looked at a massive organization, maybe a sprawling corporation, a government agency, or a massive bureaucracy, and seen an entity so obsessed with internal politics, so consumed by policing its own staff and protecting the management, that it entirely forgets its actual purpose?
We see it all the time.
It's like a hospital spending 90% of its annual budget on internal security guards to monitor the doctors while the patients just bleed out in the waiting room.
That's a very visceral way to put it, but it's accurate.
The Minotaurs are that concept taken to a nightmarish galactic extreme.
When a society's most efficient, most well-funded, and most terrifying mechanism is dedicated entirely to destroying its own protectors, that society is arguably already dead.
Man, already dead.
It just hasn't stopped moving yet. The Minotaurs enforce order, sure, but it is the order of a graveyard. They protect the High Lords, but they do so by actively weakening the defensive capabilities of the human race.
They're burning the house down to stay warm.
Yes, the elite would rather rule over a diminishing empire of ashes than risk losing control of a thriving one.
That is fundamentally broken. It's a compelling, incredibly dark way to look at the mechanics of power.
It really makes you reconsider the whole setting.
It does. This has been a massive journey. Just to recap the mechanics we've unpacked today, we started with the bureaucratic violence of the cursed founding.
Right, the deliberate erasure.
Yeah, examining how erasing a military unit's history creates this psychological vacuum, leaving them as perfect, unquestioning tools.
Blank slates.
Then we looked at the logistical terror of the Daedalus Crata, how a fleet-based attack dog uses the politics of fear and the economics of envy to isolate itself from the wider military structure.
Or High Lords making sure they have no friends.
Exactly. And then we dug into the grim reality of their fratricidal combat doctrine, where cannibalizing the armor of their brothers and training to bypass transhuman physiology is viewed as the ultimate test of skill.
The gamification of slaughter.
Yeah. And finally, we zoomed out to see them as the hyper-lethal T-cells of an empire suffering from a fatal autoimmune disease, engineered by a paranoid elite.
It is a stark portrait of authoritarian control and institutional decay. But, I want to leave you with a final thought to consider, one that builds on the very biological and political mechanics we've just explored.
Oh, please do.
The High Lords have bred a force that views the destruction of other transhuman elites as the ultimate test of skill. Their explicit mandate is to ruthlessly cut out any infected flesh within the Imperium.
Right.
But paranoia is a contagion, and hyper-pragmatism is a cold logic.
Where are you going with this?
What happens if these deeply observant, incredibly lethal attack dogs eventually look up at the bloated, corrupt, and paranoid High Lords holding their leash?
Oh, wow.
What happens if the Minotaurs apply their cold diagnostic logic to Terra itself? and decide that the High Lords are the actual source of the infection.
That they're the disease.
Exactly. Will the executioner's axe eventually swing back at the hand that holds it?
An apex predator is loyal until it realizes the entity holding the leash is the weakest creature in the room. I love that.
It's a terrifying prospect.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the grim reality of the Minotaurs. It's a powerful reminder to always look at the mechanics of who is holding the leash and to keep questioning the structures of power around you, no matter how monolithic they seem.
Always question it.
Until next time, stay curious.